Hello and welcome back to Wisdom in Action, the podcast where we explore what it takes to bridge the gap between knowing and doing, because that's where the real wisdom is born. I'm Austra, resilience coach and podcast strategist, and I created this space to have honest conversations with real experts and bring you practical insights that you can apply, not just think about. Today, we are joined by Mintun, a psychotherapist, mindful life coach, and the host of Calming Ground podcast, another podcaster joining us. And after over 2 decades in the field, Elizabeth helps people shift from depleted and stressed to grounded, present, and energized by reconnecting with the calm they already carry inside. That's beautiful. And she's here to share her own story from burnout and people-pleasing to peaceful self-trust and how present practices like forest bathing and Qigong?
Qigong?
Qigong, sorry, can help us come home to ourselves. Elizabeth, welcome to Wisdom in Action.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Likewise. So to start us off, what is one piece of wisdom that changed everything once you started applying it?
So there's so many answers that come up in my mind. So I think where I would begin, because I'm focusing on the people pleasing, is I think I used to believe that if I managed my surroundings, so for example, if with the people pleasing, if I managed people's expectations or disappointment or happiness or satisfaction, that somehow I would be have more ease or have an easier time or even more peace. And what was such a game changer for me was recognizing that it's actually the opposite, that if I really check in and manage and navigate what's happening internally, right? And not manage as in like control, but manage much more as in, offer myself support, that actually that makes navigating external expectations or demands or whatever so much easier. And that was a real big game changer for me.
As a recovering people pleaser, I can attest that it's easier said than done. So what was the doing piece of it? What was the actual experience going through that? Because one thing is which is a big thing, awareness, realizing it, seeing it, but then it's kind of like you're stuck. But I'm still in this phase where like I have to be everybody for everyone, and I have to always put everybody wants and needs first, and I by default neglect myself and my wants. So how was that journey for you?
Yeah. So originally when I was deep into the people pleasing and trying to make everybody happy, I found that I was, first of all, recognizing how depleted I was. I would say yes as a default, right? Someone would ask me to help out with something, or could I bend over backwards in such and such a way to make things easier for them? And they did it in a way that wasn't malicious, right? They were just advocating for themselves or having a request or sometimes a demand. And I defaulted into yes. And what would happen is I started noticing that I would tense up. Like there was certain signs that I was getting into this default, because what would happen is after I would say yes or commit, then I would realize what I just did, and then I would think, oh my goodness, I don't want to do this. How can I even fit this into my life? And I was getting more and more stressed and more tired. And then sometimes I would backpedal and say, you know what, actually, I recognize I said yes too quickly, but then I felt like that didn't serve me either, because yes, I was kind of trying to shift it later, but then I ended up feeling bad about myself because I felt like I was flaky or I wasn't, following through on my commitments. And so I recognized that I needed to do something before that default set in. And so I started really paying attention to my body. And one of the things that I would notice is I would tense up my core, almost like holding in my stomach, like right before I was about to say that yes. And when I could catch it, like really learn to check in with myself, like, oh, I'm tensing, like, let me pause before I respond. That was a huge one. But the other piece is that I had to decide to take the courage to start practicing a no. And then what I would do is I would say to people, like, okay, I'm really practicing saying no, checking in with myself and saying no. So I'm gonna I'm going to say no here. And that's really hard for me to do, but I'm going to do it. And sometimes in that initial stage of like transitioning, because it was so scary and it wasn't what I was used to, offering them and just saying out loud, like, I am practicing something different. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to practice this. I have to say no because it actually doesn't fit with my schedule right now. It helped give me the grace, and then on some level, I think it invited grace because people responded to me differently. So I don't know if that's practical enough, but those are some of the things that really helped me.
That's in itself having some people that can give you space to practice that and to give you some compassion and grace as you're doing it. That's a big one. I didn't necessarily have that, but what I did have is support with saying no. Like I remember there was like one of my friends was doing kind of like weekly workshops, and every time when I would show up, like she would tell me, "I'm so happy that you're here. Like it makes me feel really like good and kind of like more confident." And I was like, well, I have to be a good friend, so I have to show up, even if I'm not necessarily interested in the topics were like, it's not that the delivery was bad. It's just like I wasn't interested in the topic or it wasn't that relevant for my life at the time.
Yeah.
But I felt like, okay, every week I have to free up that spot and I have to kind of move my day around just so I can show up at that. And at no point I considered not doing it. It wasn't even a concept of saying, oh, no, I can't. And it wasn't even that there was expectation made that I have to be there. It was just that kind of self-created expectation. Oh, like she said she feels better. So like naturally I have to be there, right? Every week. And I remember I was talking to a friend of mine and he said to me like, just don't go. And I remember I was like walking home from the gym and I was like, how will I squeeze it in? I have to go there or I have to find time. And he was like, just don't go. And I literally, as I read it, I just stopped and I'm like, what do you mean don't go? Like, what? And I remember, I don't remember what he said, but it was something along the lines of like, if that person can't understand or be understandable about you not going, then it kind of says more about that person or your friendship. And I remember I was so afraid. So I messaged like, hey, I won't be able to make it today. She was like, oh, fine, that's no problem. And never showed up again.
Oh, I love that.
And but it was that first experience that I had to go through. It doesn't mean that the next few weeks I had less like guilt about it, but it was the first experience or that first time to actually see that I can do it. It's actually possible to say that I can't make it and not show up and be fine. It's completely fine. It was such a foreign concept for me because I always have been that person who is like, okay, I'm a peacemaker. I have to be available. So, and add to that also the psychology background, coaching background, everything. You kind of are kind of driven to serve others and be there for others, which a lot of times partly comes from your background where you didn't have others for you, so you know how important that is to have people there for your life, and it was really interesting concept where even like setting, which I'm sure we're gonna touch on, setting boundaries and how that is another challenge, and sticking to them, not just setting them. But that first step is something that definitely having some support is really helpful, even if it's as simple as just like what you did. It's actually brilliant. It's like, hey, I'm learning this thing, not to be silly, but like I'm learning this thing to say no. I know it's common sense for you. For me, it's not. It's hard. So can you please like give me some space to do that and practice that and go through whatever I need to go through to do that? Because there's a lot that we go through that, yeah, I remember I was so afraid, and now it's kind of like a no issue. It has become, even like time with myself has become more of like a sacred time. But I still need to be really mindful as well. It's not like you become immune to those patterns.
It's so true. Yeah. And I do appreciate with the sort of I'm practicing this, it's less personal. It's not like I'm telling you no because I don't like you, right? It's I'm telling you no because I'm practicing. So it's really, that was something that really helped me. And then the other thing that as you were talking that I was thinking about is, I see I'm a life coach and I'm a psychotherapist. And so sometimes I work with people who experience themselves in crisis. And it used to be that I would drop everything, right? If it,
Yeah.
and it didn't matter what was going on, there was a crisis. And what I've started recognizing is not all crises are the same, and
Yep.
not that and that's not invalidating anybody's crisis, but
Yeah.
but what I found is like if someone's not in immediate danger and I am not really actually able to be there in the ways that, I could be if my schedule was free, then I get to, I don't have, their crisis isn't my crisis. I get to say, you know what, here's at a time where I can really show up for you. And
Mm-hmm.
what was so amazing to me about practicing that, saying, okay, actually, right the second I am not available, here's when I am, is that they would figure out that they had the resilience to resolve it on their own so much of the time. And so had I swept in the way I was doing and show up, join them in their crisis on some level, I mean, yes, there's a time and a place for that. Sometimes that makes sense, right? But what I recognized is, oh my gosh, like they're realizing, you know what? I'm going to have highs and lows, and I can ask for support, and I can also call on my own inner wisdom, to get through this. And so it was a win-win. And when that was another thing that for me was really surprising. I was like, wait, if I'm not like there with my cape, like in my superwoman shirt, that they're going to be okay. And so it was a good awareness to trust people.
I have so many things I want to touch on just with what you just shared. Um, First one is with the way that people. It's this one thing. I don't know if I heard it or I realized it as I was starting to be maybe less available, and then people would be like, "Are you mad at me?" Um, is that people treat us the way we teach them to treat us.
Yeah.
Same thing with expectations. If you're always available, there's no reason for them to think that you won't be available another time. And if you now become less available and they have some reaction towards that, don't be surprised by it, because we taught people that we're always available, we're always there, which is not a bad thing to have or bad trait to have. But sometimes we end up doing it at the neglect of our own wants, needs, and values. So even through that, for me, usually, even right now, I'm going through the busy season. I have, even like with this podcast, the interest has been way bigger than I expected. So I have to go through all the applications, everything. And even like with some of my friends that would reach out to me, like I go through all their stuff, but if I see that there's nothing urgent, then I won't be as responsive. And I have made them aware that like this is my busy season. Like I'm still here if you need me or there's like some fires. Um, but at the same time, like I probably will be a bit more distant because I have some things that I want to focus on and give my presence to. And even that has been interesting to navigate within the relationships and friendships where I have a few people that are close to me that when I tell them, they're like, okay, got it. Like there's no issues there, no questions. Or I also say that if they are less responsive, I'm like, okay, they probably are like either going through stuff or they're busy, or I don't necessarily take it personally, which I think ties into another topic I wanted to talk about, is that because I have built strong relationship with myself, it's kind of like I had this mentor tell me that he said pretty much like I don't need anybody. I'm like, what do you mean that's not possible? Like that's just not possible. And then I got to the point where I was like, oh, I get it. Where you become so not even self-sufficient. It's kind of like you build a relationship with yourself where in some ways you can provide all you need to yourself. It doesn't mean that you now cut off everybody, which is not healthy. But you kind of build your relationship to the point where you're not in a sense of like a need, or there's like that lack of something within you. Um, which it's another topic I want to touch on. But before we go there, you mentioned the highs and lows. I think that's actually really important what you just shared about sharing that. Listen, right now is not necessarily the time that I can always show up, always be there for you because I'm going through my own stuff. Which also I think a lot of times, especially with that like hero identity that we might be having, is I'm thinking as you were speaking, I was thinking, could it also be related to the fear of being vulnerable? That, oh, I need to be the strong one. I'm always there. I always support you and I'm always available. But then when it comes to being vulnerable and sharing that, listen, right now is not my best season of life that I'm going through, so I might be less present, I might be less available. I won't ask for help because that's not what people pleasers do. I just gotta be less available. That's something that I find really interesting because I have seen a lot of people in my life initially assume that I'm this like super strong person who has her shit together and I have no problems, nothing that I'm going through. And then the more I start to share with them, the more they're like, oh, you're also human.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be relatable. Like people can actually really appreciate
Yep.
that, right? Like I get to be close. I mean, that's what's coming up for me as I hear you is that sense of common humanity that yeah, we're all vulnerable and we don't have it all together, you know? And even for me and my husband had to have that you know, like he knows, but I would always seem to like be so on top of everything and that he had, you know, I remember getting so upset with him, like, why don't you see how stressed I am? He's like, because you're not showing me, you know, you're just taking care of me,
Ah,
you know? And so
yes.
my recognition too of, oh, okay, so I need to like pay attention to that. You know, I need to pause and say, I'm really overwhelmed, you know? So I've started really practicing that too.
How is
And
that?
it's actually great because then, I mean, it was uncomfortable at first, but you know,
Yeah.
yeah. But then he gets to step in, and then I get to
Yeah.
experience like, oh, I don't have to manage everything in the ways that
And
I
you also
do.
can connect as
Yes,
well.
100%. Yeah, yeah. And then the other piece too is with the holding setting boundaries or letting people know like, hey, this is a time where I'm going to be that available. I think one of the things that I've also found is that in terms of that strengthening my relationship with myself, I have had to set some boundaries and maybe distance myself from some people who are the way that our friendship worked was that it was based on me providing and support and being available, right? And
Hmm.
so, and when there wasn't an ability for that or an elasticity in that friendship to navigate like, no, actually that's not healthy for me and I'm really trying to work on something different. I had to let those friendships go. And so that's a part of growing too. It's a hard part of growing, you know, especially when there's, you know, especially in the people pleasing when there's hard feelings, but it's been a really freeing experience for me too, you know.
It's actually something that I experienced. I realized it only when I moved here. And I started to experience what real friendship is.
Mm.
I was like, oh, my concept of friendship was I'm always there for you. I have no problems. I don't share any problems of my own because they don't matter really. Um, but my job is to be there for you, always be supportive, and yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what was my concept that I learned growing up about the friendship. And also I learned that I have to be the strong one. That was like big one. I'm the strong one in the friendships, and mainly it's me helping. It's
Mm.
kind of like it's your job.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's also expected for you to be that person who's always like available. And then when I started to experience the give and take without real conditions of, oh, I helped you this much, so you have to help me this much, or um you're the one who needs to help me, like it's like your problems are not really that important. um that's when I started to really like understand that, oh, so this is what friendship actually looks like, and there's no like scores or oh, you helped me this much, so, or like whatever, this is inconvenience of me, so I can't be there for you, or whatever might be the case, or even setting boundaries within the friendships. Like that's another thing that or another one is being honest and
Mm.
telling what the person needs to hear, not what they want to hear. So even like going through all that, I was like, oh, I got friendships completely wrong. And I would like carry that kind of concept of friendships with me everywhere I went. And a few years when I did what I call friendship audit, like I think it's like one New Year's, I was in cafe and I was like, oh, I want to like, I don't know where I came up with that idea, just go through my relationships in my life. And as I started to do that, I started to see, or like with people that I felt like are the closest to me, I started to see how one-sided they were. I was the one that was reaching out or initiating the contact, or if we would meet up, it would be more like at their place. It wasn't even in the middle. It was always like me having to go, and I was okay with that because I was like, well, that's normal. Like I didn't even consider any other reality because I was like, that's just the way it is. So I think that's where like starting to. Do you have any advice with like going from that um kind of the reality of people pleasing and the rules, unwritten rules that come with that, to shifting more towards more balanced relationships, also more vulnerability, more sharing, more letting people in and showing that, hey, I'm also human. I also go through stuff. Sometimes I also need somebody to talk to or share some stuff with. What's the, do you have any advice to do that? Because I think it's something that logically, sure, makes sense, but it's a journey.
It is a journey. Yeah. And I'm appreciating what you shared about like the sense of it doesn't feel like there's another way. And so I say to people all the time, like, we don't know what we don't know until we know it. And then
Yep.
it's like, oh, this is a thing that can be. And so I think my first piece would just be on really inviting curiosity. And when I say that, a lot of times what can happen, like for example with the audit, like, and I'm not saying this happened with you, it doesn't sound like it
Yeah.
did, right? But there can be a judger, like can be a critical voice, like, why am I doing this, or why are they
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like asking me to go to their house. And so I think just really inviting some open spirit to say, okay, let me just get really interested, like this is what's happening, versus applying like a judgment to it.
Yeah.
Right. And then once we can do that, that in and of itself is really hard. But like once we can do that, like, okay, here's what I'm noticing. I'm noticing that I'm going there all the time. And I'm noticing that I'm not, that used to be okay with me. And now it's not feeling as okay. Right.
Yeah.
So it's just awareness. And then from there, it would be like offering that permission to ourselves to try something different, to experience a new
Ooh.
reality. It's so hard. But even having a mantra, like I give myself permission to try something different. And then
Mhm.
the other piece to that, as I would say, is again with that sort of openness, like this is an experiment. It's not a like it's not like a ride or die. Like, it's like, okay, let me experiment with what happens when I say, hey, you know what? Why don't we meet in the middle? Well, how do they respond? Again, it's just opening, like, what's this like? Does this feels like tricky and like frictiony, or does it feel like there's a flow, right? And so it's like, I think of it as like, you know, there's times in our life where it's really helpful to think of it as a lab, not because it is a lab, or not because we're getting like science-y about it, but like more so like or a playground or a sandbox, however, whatever word makes the most sense. And let me play with this. Let me try something and just see what happens. But taking that pressure off of it's got to be this way, or it's got to be that way.
Yeah.
Or if it's not this way, then it's bad. But if it's this way, it's good. Because then all that happens is we're robbing ourselves of our peace again, just in a different way.
Yeah. We are so good at it. It's like
Yeah.
as you were speaking, I actually got this question because I'm big on talking about curiosity over judgment.
Mhm.
And but I was thinking, because you said curiosity, then you went into the awareness. Is it that curiosity a lot of times can lead to awareness? Because I just had, I think it was like a few episodes ago, maybe even last episode, where we talked about awareness, how a lot of times we're not even aware.
Mhm.
And it's like fish in the water, you tell them they're in the water and they're like, what do you mean I'm in the water? Like,
Mhm.
and until we see that, we don't see, it's kind of like what you said, we don't see what we don't see.
Mhm.
And it's hard to change something that we don't see. Or the way I describe it is that like if we're both in a dark room and I catch you, or like I throw you a ball, like you might catch it, but you probably won't be able to do it consistently. You won't be able to see it of like what actually is going on. And with that, as you said it, I was like, could it be that curiosity could be a portal towards awareness? Or is there something else that can help with the raising awareness or becoming more aware? Because that's a lot of times where a lot of it starts.
Yeah, no, I totally think so. I love that image of the throwing a ball in a dark room. That's so great. Yeah, so I think curiosity is a big part. So for example, like when somebody had mentioned to me somewhere along my journey, like they were like, Elizabeth, you seem to take responsibility for a lot that that doesn't belong to you. And I had no
Mm.
idea I was doing that. I was like, what do you mean? I don't. But then I was like,
Yeah,
well,
it's normal.
yeah. And I was like, can you give me an example? And then they started like listing all of these examples of where I was feeling very responsible for things like, you know, just things that I didn't have any control over, like that weren't mine. And so I think when I got interested in that, coupled with like, let me notice where I'll ask myself, like, am I taking responsibility? Is this mine? Is this, or does this,
Uh,
just raising that curiosity awareness versus a damning, like, don't take responsibility, Elizabeth, because then all that does is shut down. Now we're in shame. But if there's that opening toward like, let me get interested about when am I doing this? And then the other piece for me that's been incredibly helpful is to notice there's usually a pairing with my body's response. So my
mm,
head won't figure it out until I've already done it. When I'm really trying to learn something new, I got to do it. I got to take the responsibility. And then I might maybe a day later, sometimes a month later, be like, oh, like that was one of those times, but if I can get aware of like, okay, when I do this, what's happening? And that's where for me, like I started really noticing my stomach, my core, I was like tightening and holding my breath. Then if I have that awareness, I can catch that, I can,
mm-hmm.
and then I could be like, okay, something's happening. I know it's happening in real time because I'm doing that thing where I clench up, and I stop breathing. So what's going on? And for a long time, I didn't even know. I just feel like something's going on. I don't know what
Yep.
it is, and then,
You
and then
just know.
I know what's happening. My body's letting me know something. But if I could stay open, I didn't have to
Yeah.
necessarily always figure it out. But slowly it started getting more and more obvious. Like, oh, this is what's happening. So yes, I think that awareness it's like putting the light on in the room. Like, okay, now I can, and maybe that's what that is what you were, I think, saying is like, now I can catch, now I can see the ball. Now I can recognize, oh, it's being thrown to me. And I have a choice.
Yeah.
I can pick it up and catch it, or I can decide like, that's not my ball, you know?
Actually, I have another metaphor with the darkness and
Yeah.
awareness.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like, how a lot of times when we invite people over, there's just one room that nobody can go in. We put all the stuff in there and nobody can go in that room.
Uh-huh.
And what we do is we actually do the same thing with ourselves. We just suppress stuff, we put it away, and we close the door, and that's it. We pretend that it's not there. We know it's there, but we pretend that it's not there. And then what we do a lot of times, which I'm also curious to hear your thoughts on this, is that, well, first, once we open the door, again, the light is the awareness. You actually can see it. But then one thing that happens with the awareness, that the more we work on awareness, becoming aware, we actually start to see everything that's wrong with us. And that is overwhelming. And that can be paralyzing. And that can make you feel really bad about yourself. Do you have any advice to navigate that moment when you start to become aware, but you get to the point where you see everything that is in that
Yeah.
room that you have been pushing there for years and years, if not decades?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, so I have kind of two different channels of response. One is like,
Uh-huh.
I think sometimes if we have tons of shame or there's like pretty strong uh overwhelm, like where we feel like we're drowning in it or we feel really down on ourselves, support is really important. So sometimes that is
Yeah.
a trusted person in our life already. Sometimes that's professional support, like a coach or a therapist or something like that. So that's one channel. And then the other piece is again, moving with that curiosity and compassion, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, what are the stories I'm telling myself about this? Like I'm probably telling myself a really potentially, right? Like some kind of right, wrong, black and white story. And then what is there, and then to ask ourselves, like, what if that story's not actually true? Was it candid to me? And sometimes I'd be like, who's this story belong to? Does it belong to my mom? Does it belong to a teacher? Does it belong to my grandparent? Like my dad, whoever, right? The neighbor. Like, where did these stories accumulate in my mind, right?
Yeah.
Around my experience. And sometimes that can just help loosen it a little bit. But most of all, though, what I would say is like, it takes so much courage to open those doors, to go in those rooms, right? And
That
so,
alone.
yeah, it's huge. And so when we meet whatever we meet in there that we've been purposely not meeting, because there's so much attached to it of feelings or shame or like narratives, right? We think it's not okay. It's there hiding for a reason. Then I would say just coming back and coming back and coming back to this is like a warrior journey. It's a courageous journey, right? And so yes, it's messy. It's a messy one. And yes, it can feel overwhelming. It's an overwhelming one, but that doesn't equate bad. I think sometimes, we go into discomfort and we associate it with like something's wrong
Yep.
or something's bad. Discomfort is not always bad, right? Sometimes it is growth. And my clients like laugh a lot because when they're going through a crisis, a lot of times I'm like, yes, not because I want that. I know it feels like hell when you're going through it, but
you know what it means.
Yes, there's a breakthrough here, And so can we move with that, the messiness and trust that process? Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it can even start with just sitting in that room and looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You don't have to take and clean everything or try to make order of it. Just look at it.
Yeah.
And that's it. Just take it in, sit there and look at it. If needed, you can sit a bit outside of the room so there's a bit more space.
Yeah. You can pace it. Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. I think sometimes you might need to be like, okay, I'm going to purposely, consciously move out of here for a little while because it's too much. But I took a look and I'm moving out. And then there might be another time where you step back in, but you have the power to do that.
And I think also that the more we look at it, the more, one is because it becomes less scary, but also we accept it. It's like, okay, it is what it is. And with what you said about what is it? We are the meaning making machines. We make meaning of everything. And I had this one mentor that said me a really good question about like whatever happens or kind of experience that you have, what do you make it mean? Especially what do you make it mean about yourself? So let's say if somebody fails, what do you make it mean about yourself? That you're a failure? Or maybe you tried something new you have never done before and it's a really courageous step. Like what is that we actually make it mean? And especially when you said about the challenging it, that's actually what my other podcast is about. It's called Chase the Impossible. And I started it, even like that concept, it came to me through me doing my like half marathons. Then I did like half Ironman with like 90-day prep. And I had no background in the triathlon as well. And I went straight to like half Ironman. And I had for years, I literally, when I was younger, I was playing basketball. I wake up like at 5 a.m. to go for a run because I was like, well, one, it was all from insecurity and not being good enough. But also 5 a.m. is when nobody was up and nobody could see me running. That's how insecure I was about the way I was running. And then fast forward to like with basketball, I had to stop basketball because I had some like back issues and doctors literally told me like, you can't run. That's it. You're done running. And I'm like, okay. For like 2 years, I didn't run at all.
Wow.
Then I slowly started to explore running. And mind you, I don't like the word hate, but I dislike with passion running. I'm not good at it. I'm slow. I don't like it. And then a few years ago, I watched movie Brittany runs marathon. And I was like, well, if she can do it, I can do it as well. So I literally went online, found a program right after I finished the movie. And like a few months later, I did my first half marathon. And through that, that's when I was like, I said to my friend, if I finish this half marathon, half Ironman now is a possibility because you finished it with half marathon. And that was the only reason why I thought I can't do it. I can't run. So even going through that journey, it's kind of like that. Whatever you think is impossible, challenge it, question it. Is it actually true? Where are the facts? And then also, before you give up, go and try to chase it. Actually try to, it's even like with running. It's like one of the things that I will be working on because this year I signed up for a marathon. And I was like, okay, hold up. Okay, I'm not fast. All this kind of stuff. Sure. I get it. I see the numbers, everything. But did I actually try to get faster? Did I actually try? Did I get a coach? No. Did I actually like look into like different strategies, different things, technique, all that? I would look into it, but I didn't apply it consistently to work on it. And even despite all that, I still had incremental growth and progress over the few years that I have been doing it. So I'm like, maybe I'm just counting myself out and I'm keeping this belief alive just by believing it. What if I'm fast? Like,
Yeah.
like maybe I'm actually fast. I'm just so convinced that I'm slow because within the basketball, this is funny actually. Like my teammates, they're like, "You're fast." I'm like, "What do you mean I'm slow?" And you know what? I always say, this is like such a good, like the BS of our minds is just incredible. I would be like, "Well, I just read the situation well, so I just like I start to run quicker before you start, so naturally I'm at the end like earlier, right?" And and let's say at no moment I'm considering that, oh, actually, maybe I'm actually fast. I'm just like, no, 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 I'm not fast. I'm actually slow. I just read situations well. That's what I do.
Yeah. Yes.
And we literally
Yes.
have this in everything. And we have this, actually, I would want to talk on this about this self perception that we have of ourselves, that of who we think we are versus questioning that and actually looking for and finding our true selves that sometimes we bury down deep, deep under. Um, how to know if you are like your authentic self or not, and what would be the journey towards connecting it or even starting to look for it.
Yeah. Well, I think like again, that noticing piece of like, for example, when you were playing basketball and they're giving you this feedback and you're explaining it away, right? I think it's great to notice like the ways that you're doing that. I mean, I have an example too. I was, you know, before I worked in coaching and the online word podcasting, I was a therapist. I still am, and I have a private practice. But that worked so well because I had decided that I really wanted to not be. I just kind of wanted to work quietly and not really be seen in any big
Yeah,
way, right? Not in the spotlight. And so
behind the scenes.
yes. So it worked perfectly. I would have somebody come in a waiting room, right? And then I would take them into a room with a closed door, and it was all private and it's
All
quiet,
away from everything.
yeah, I've got HIPAA, everything. So everything is quiet. And then they leave, and then I go home, And so when I started,
Perfect.
yes. And when I started going into like podcasting or the online sort of coaching, because coaching, and again, in therapy, we're licensed in the state that we're licensed in, or sometimes it's several states, but we have to take an exam for each one of those. Coaching, it's wide open. And so for me, when I started getting into that world and then the podcasting, and I was thinking about doing that, I thought, oh, this is so terrifying. And so that's for me a really good sign. Like, is something scary? Like,
Mm.
not in a dangerous way, right? Like, to ask yourself, right? Like for me, so I asked myself, like, okay, what scares me about this, And what scared me about it when I really sat with it was it took me to my edge of comfort, like I'm
Yeah.
way beyond it, right? And so I'm going to be heard. I'm going to be seen. Like people could not like me. People could not like my message. People could be mean, and because I'm putting myself out there, and that was terrifying. So does that mean I'm in like danger? No. Okay. Do I want to do this? And do I have reasons why I want to kind of interested in this? Yes. Well, then how do I navigate my fear? Because I'm having
Mm.
all kinds of stories. People are going to be mean. I can't do it. They won't like my message, what do I really have to share, And so to lean in, so looking, is that a story that I'm telling myself that's based on fear to keep myself small and hidden in some way? Or is that a limiting belief that's, like the I'm not fast. Do I have an interest in it? Like, can I walk to that edge? Am I ready to walk to that edge? It's really different than I can't, you know?
Yeah. And there's I had somebody tell that we had like episode recorded about the shame, and she was like, chase the shame. And I think it's the same with fear a lot of times. Instead of running away from it, chase it, face it, and step into it, because that's where a lot of times, you know how like it's that classical story of how we find our purpose. We find it in our pain. We find it in all the suffering that we went through. A lot of times that's where our purpose is found. We don't see it in the moment as we're going through the hardship or challenge or whatever is the situation. But a lot of times by the time you come out of it on the other end, you start to see that actually I want to go and help others to do that same thing. But it's something, I think it's really similar with the fear and shame. Actually, in my experience, have been similar, where you feel them and then you either, like with shame, it's just getting it out there, whether you share it or you do something that might cause that feeling. But same thing with the fear as well. It's kind of like they just vanish.
Yeah.
But they can keep us so stuck in, it feels like this enormous wall that we need to overcome, that you see no way around it. What did you say to somebody who is, oh, I really want to do it. I feel even drawn to do it or to take this step, whatever is the step or decision, but they have this big wall in front of them.
Yeah. Okay, so I love working with resistance, because to me, resistance isn't a negative thing. So how I see resistance. So when I say resistance, I mean like I have this wall, right? Wall. And so I'll say, okay, like, so let's befriend it. Like, that wall is probably your protector, right? And it's got really good intentions. It's like, we got to keep you safe, right? And so in your example, like, we got to keep you from thinking you're fast, because what if you're not, you know? Or in my example, like, we got to keep you quiet and in a room, because what if people find out who you are, how you are, and they don't like you, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's a good, it's well-meaning. Those walls aren't there to punish us most of the time, or even if they do feel punishing, there's a protective piece to it.
There's a reason.
Yeah. And so what happens, the other thing I notice in my work is if I were with whoever I'm working with, push against too hard the walls, the protectors, then they will push right back. And they're like bouncers, you know, like they're like, oh no, you didn't. Like, and so what I find is like actually inviting them in, like, okay, all right, here's my wall. Hello, wall, you know, or hello, protector, you know, or hello, resistance or limiting belief, and really invite it. Like, I know you're trying to protect me. I wonder if we can work together. You know, like, how can I work with this story that I'm telling myself? How can I work with this belief I have in a way that we just give it a little try? And what I find is that when there's it sounds so crazy, but when there's an alliance with the wall gets more porous.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, like, it's like, okay, all right, I know I'm really trying to protect myself because I've gotten burned before and people have said mean things to me. And and so that's valid. That's happened. And what if we work together so that I just try an episode? Maybe I'll try 5, you know, or maybe I don't, maybe I take a class on podcasting in my case, right? But like, I don't necessarily start the podcast. I just see how I feel after doing the class, you know, or the workshop or whatever. So then I'm inviting the resistance with
warming
me.
it up.
Yes. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going, you know, and like, for me, the timing was right and I did it and I had no regrets, you know, but I think inviting the resistance versus resisting the resistance, because as soon as we resist the resistance gets bigger.
Yeah, resistance is a big one. I have such a similar experience with the podcast. I didn't want to be seen growing up. That was like, that was like the last thing I wanted, to be seen. And I remember when I was living in UK, like I was studying sports psychology there, and I always was the mediator in my shared houses. Like I was always the middleman, always trying to resolve all the conflicts that everybody had. And I remember I was their therapist pretty much. And I remember one of the housemates, she was like, and I have been thinking about podcasts. I don't even know why. Like, I don't know. And she was like, have you ever thought about like doing a podcast? And my first thought was like, no, I have accent. I can't do it. Literally, that was my first thought. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, no. And that's on top of like not wanting to be seen. Because then like you can't really do podcasts without you. It's kind of like, how do I hide away from that? And I remember I messaged like one of my course mates because she's so inspirational. She, at the time when we were studying, she went through multi-drug resistant tuberculosis while we were studying. So I seen like a lot of behind the scenes, or we would have conversations, things like that. Super resilient. Like she's half my size, but like super resilient girl. And I asked her like, would you want to be my first guest? Because I also wanted her to get a bit out there and share her story. Actually, for her birthday, I reached out to, I don't know, all the people that I knew. I made them watch this one interview that she made about her experience. And I asked them to give feedback about what they think about her. Because I would tell her like, oh my gosh, you're so this, and she's like, oh, kind of like dismiss it because you're my friend. And then I literally had, I think it was 22nd birthday, and I got 22 people submit their answers about what they thought of her. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is so nice. And I'm like, see, I'm not the only one. But like, she was the first guest that I got on. And I just bought, I have no idea how I did. There's been several experiences like this where I'm like, how did I do it? Like, it doesn't make sense with that conditioning or beliefs that I would have. I bought a camera, I bought headphones, microphone, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing a podcast now. It's official. And I just started to do it. I invited some people, some friends, and kind of like went from there. But I remember how afraid I was with like sharing my stuff as well. It's like giving some examples from my life. I would give only like safe examples, nothing that makes me vulnerable. So I was literally like, I describe myself like rock. I was just like, I was there. I was asking good questions, but I put nothing kind of from me. It was more so, you talk. Let's just say, not me. No. You talk. Question about you. And I would still kind of try to hide, I think. And then the big thing, which I actually would want to talk about, is the stronger I build relationship with myself, the more I accepted a lot of parts of me that initially I would be not happy about or ashamed about, or I would judge, or all that kind of stuff, the more comfortable I felt to actually share it. And I think a lot of times I have seen that a lot is where, for me at least, the stronger I have a relationship with myself, the more I also have that trust in myself to be able to deal with whatever will be the response from others, because I got me. I can kind of trust myself to be able to deal with it. But it takes a lot to build that relationship as well. It's like any relationship, which may be even harder because we know all the secrets of ourselves. Yeah. We can't hide from ourselves.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that the more that we can build that compassionate friendship, right, with ourselves, the easier it becomes to navigate. Then that's kind of going back to the beginning, full circle, like where, I was talking about like that sense of I was trying so hard to manage out here, out in how people were going to respond to me, or if they were going to be satisfied or not satisfied. And that recognition of, oh, no, like if I align with me, if I really get kind, and give myself permission to be how I am, then how other people are, that's just them doing them. I had somebody write, it wasn't a bad review for my podcast, but it was one that shook me a little bit. But
Yeah.
but not in a big way. At the beginning, it would have, but now,
of course.
But they talked about how I use a kindergarten voice, and I was like, I think this is just how I talk. Like, like what is the voice that I'm using that's kindergarten?
Oh my gosh.
But I thought, oh my gosh, like there's some story they have around tone that they're assigning to me. And you know what? I don't have to take that responsibility. It goes back. I don't have to take responsibility for what the meaning they're making from my tone,
Yeah, and like for me, another reminder is that Brene Brown talks a lot about the people in the arena and the spectators. A lot of the time, spectators have the most opinions, and they can tell you everything that you're doing wrong, anything that you need to improve. Are they doing it themselves? Not really, because usually people that are in the arena, they will encourage you, they will support you because they are in it. They know what it's about, they know how it feels, they know all the struggles, all the thoughts, all the doubts also that come with it, or all the negative comments that we read, and we remember only those. We forget all the 100 comments that are like positive and like encouraging. No. Forget those. This one comment.
Yes. And I so appreciate that too, because I think, for example, like this is the other piece that was so important to me was around, okay, so if I'm taking care of me and I'm really noticing like I'm tensing up, I'm having this response and I'm just taking care of me, then I have a lot of power there. If I'm taking care, if I'm managing somebody else and they're upset with me, and then I'm having all kinds of responses to their upset, right? And I'm not checking in with me about that, I lost my power,
Yep.
And so going back to that kindergarten voice, like if for some reason there was something about my cadence that caused a feeling of condescension, like I'm being condescending in some way, that's not mine.
People have some creativity with their
yeah. But just to like, so that was actually a beautiful moment because it was like, and I took it as kind of like a gift, like, oh, I don't have to, that's a ball that I'm going to let go right past me. If it was right, like I don't need, this is just my voice and I get to have my voice and it's okay. Yeah. So.
There's two things that came to me as you were speaking. Like one is that this has helped me so much because a few years ago, like I do cold winter swims. So I was filming them, posting them. I did them every day, 90 days in a row. And there was one video that took off on TikTok. It had like 2 million views and like over 2,000 comments. All kinds of opinions you see there. I was in a good place mentally, so I'm grateful I was in kind of like healthy place. But one thing that I have learned that I understand about anything really, because even when I did it was interesting with half Ironman, I could see how other people were putting their limitations on me unknowingly.
Yes.
And that's where, for me, I try to remind myself of, let's say, if somebody would tell that it wasn't like even them putting me down. It was more so them being like, oh, she's taking on this like big task, but it was said in a way that it felt like they don't really believe it can be done. For me, it was like, oh, so they think that if they were in my situation, they wouldn't be able to do it within that time frame. It just says more about them and where they are and what they believe versus what I'm capable of or what I can do. Because in that place where I was, I don't know if I can do it. That's literally where I was. I have never done it. I have never given myself that timeline. I have never done any triathlons. I actually just don't know. So I'll find out after 90 days if I can do it or not, which I did. But even like going through that, it was really interesting where there was like a shift that I had in my mind where I was like, oh, it just says what they believe that can be done or what's their perception of me. It doesn't mean that it's true about me. It's just like their perception. And also I love what you said about gifts because that's literally how I describe triggers. I describe them as a gift that I'm unwrapping and I'm like, ooh, what do we need to work on? What do we need to address today?
Yes. And I think as long as we can see it that way, like I'll have my initial response and then it's like, oh no, I don't have, I get to not, then I'm growing, then it's like, wow, I have more freedom, that, and it always belonged to me. Right. But now I'm claiming it, before that would have been one of the reasons I wouldn't have gotten into this. And now I'm like, thank you, like
literally, thank you.
Yeah.
It's like the best thing you can do. Somebody tries, or not, it's not that they did it intentionally, but if somebody says something that is triggering, you're like, thank you. I needed this. I'm not asking more of it, but thank you.
Yes.
I feel like we could talk forever. Before I ask you the last question, where can people learn about you, connect with you?
Oh yeah. So the Calming Ground with the calmingground.com is my my website, and there's all kinds of freebies on there. Actually, if you go on there, the first thing that'll pop up is a free guided meditation that it's just nice to, I think I've gotten good feedback from that, and that's probably the easiest way for people to find me. But also the Calming Ground podcast, same name, just podcast. You're welcome to check me out there. Those would be two good places to find me.
Okay. And what is one piece of wisdom you're still learning to live?
Oh, so many. I think I think the one that has come to me that I'm still practicing for sure in a big way is that I really believe, like we were talking about the freedom and the rooms that we hold in our, like the room where we're holding everything. I think it's the idea that the peace that sometimes I think there can be a seeking mentality, like, oh, I need to get better, or I need to seek something outside of me. I think for me, it's coming back and back and back to no. Like my peace is here. I carry it around everywhere. It's my decision whether or not I tap in. And that part, I think, is something I'm still practicing, but it's growing inside. Like that sense of wherever I go, my peace is there. I'm going to decide, I get to decide if I tap in.
I actually had one guest walk me through interesting journey mentally, because I shared with him with, like, a lot of times we try to achieve something, get somewhere. And there was this one entrepreneur who said that the moment he understood that there is no finish line, it was really helpful for him.
Yeah.
So I shared it with him, and he was like, but then if you go one step further, you realize that that finish line is this present moment. This whole time, you are already here.
Yes.
It's already in front of you.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's profound.
Yes. I had somebody say something similar to me around, if you seek and seek and seek this peace and calm, you're going to end up right in this moment, right? There's nothing, right. Right. And it's exactly what you're saying. And it's like, yeah. Oh yeah. So he's like, so you get to just stop seeking and just kind of lean in.
We have this power of overcomplicating everything, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, once you break everything down, it's so simple. It's so, in some ways, even like it's basics.
It is
but
so
we're just
basic.
Like, there must be something out there. It's like, okay, let's stop, be in this moment, take a breath. You are exactly where you need to be, which is here.
Yes. So that is something that for sure I am still reminding myself to come back to. But I definitely feel like I've come such a long way from where I was. Yeah.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you for coming on, sharing your wisdom.
My pleasure.
I took plenty of notes myself, and it was a fun journey to be on to discover these topics together. And to anybody listening, if you're an expert with 20 plus years of experience and you want to come on the podcast, share your wisdom, there'll be information below. Or if you want to start your podcast, need help with managing your podcast, or want to get on more podcasts yourself, there will be information below as well. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.